Welcome back. You guys submitted some amazing pictures from last week's video, so I'm gonna go ahead and show them right now. I love the imaginations that you guys have and just the dreams that you have for yourselves. It was so cool seeing what you guys have always wanted to do. This week, the story that we're reading is The Story of Ferdinand by Munro Leaf and drawings by Robert Lawson. For this week, we are going to focus on the comprehension strategy of determining the main idea of a story. The main idea is what the author wants you to know, or what the author wants you to take away from the story. It can also be seen as a life lesson, such as believing in yourself to do something, just like Grace did in our last story. Some ways that we can identify the main idea is thinking about the characters in the story. How did they start out? Did anything major happen to them? How did this event change them? So I want you guys to think about those questions as we read The Story of Ferdinand. When I look at this cover, I see a bunch of flowers, and I also see a bull, and in his hand is a flower. It looks like he's going to eat it, or maybe he's smelling it. I wonder if this book is about a bull who likes flowers. Once upon a time in Spain. Hey, I can make a text to world connection because I know that Spain is a country in Europe, and I can make a text to self connection. I've actually gone to Spain before. I was there for a whole month, traveling all around Spain. So that's pretty cool to know that this book is about a place that I've been before. There was a little bull, and his name was Ferdinand. All the other little bulls he lived with would run and jump and butt their heads together. But not Ferdinand. He liked to sit just quietly and smell the flowers. He had a favorite spot out in the pasture under a cork tree. It was his favorite tree, and he would sit in its shade all day and smell the flowers. Sometimes his mother, who was a cow, would worry about him. She was afraid he would be lonesome all by himself. I don't think I know what the word lonesome means. Let me see if I can use context clues to figure out what this word means. You can use the text surrounding a word that you don't know in order to try and figure out what this word means. This process is called using context clues. So I see this sentence says, she was afraid he would be lonesome all by himself. Well, I know that all by himself means that he's just alone. And hey, now that I think about it, the word alone has lone in it, and so does lonesome. I think maybe lonesome means being all by yourself or feeling alone. Why don't you run and play with the other little bulls and skip and butt your head, she would say. But Ferdinand would shake his head. I like it better here, where I can sit just quietly and smell the flowers. His mother saw that he was not lonesome, and because she was an understanding mother, even though she was a cow, she let him just sit there and be happy. As the years went by, Ferdinand grew and grew until he was very big and strong. I see that they were tracking Ferdinand's height on this tree. Based on what this tree says, he is probably 2 years old now. All the other bulls who had grown up with him in the same pasture would fight each other all day. They would butt each other and stick each other with their horns. What they wanted most of all was to be picked to fight at the bullfights in Madrid. Take a moment and think about what bullfighting might be. What do you think bullfighting is? Bullfights are pretty famous in Spain. A big stadium full of thousands of people, kind of like a football game. Watch as a person fights the bull. Typically, at the end of bullfights, the bull is killed by the person in the ring with them. But if the bull puts up a really great fight, the person might decide not to kill the bull. And this bull will be seen as very honorable and will get to keep his life. But not Ferdinand. He still liked to sit just quietly under the cork tree and smell the flowers. One day, 5 men came in very funny hats to pick the biggest, fastest, roughest bull to fight in the bullfights in Madrid. All the other bulls ran around, snorting and butting, leaping and jumping, so the men would think that they were very, very strong and fierce, and pick them. Ferdinand knew that they wouldn't pick him, and he didn't care. So he went out to his favorite cork tree to sit down. He didn't look where he was sitting, and instead of sitting on the nice cool grass in the shade, he sat on a bumblebee. Well, if you were a bumblebee and a bull sat on you, what would you do? Take a moment to tell me, what would you do if you were a bee and a bull sat on you? Well, let's see what this bee does. You would sting him. And that is just what this bee did to Ferdinand. Wow, did it hurt? Ferdinand jumped up with a snort. He ran around puffing and snorting, butting and pawing the ground as if he were crazy. The 5 men saw him, and they all shouted with joy. Here was the largest and fiercest bull of all, just the one for the bullfights in Madrid. So, they took him away for the bullfight day in a cart. What a day it was! Flags were flying, bands were playing, and all the lovely ladies had flowers in their hair. I wonder if this day is kind of like a festival, because it seems like all of the people are celebrating this day. Can you think of any days in your culture that are celebrated like this bullfight is in Spain? Talk about it. Describe the day that's celebrated in your culture. Maybe when we're done reading, you can even research into the history of that day. Figure out why it was celebrated and when did it start being celebrated. They had a parade into the bull ring. First came the banderilleros, with long sharp pins with ribbons on them to stick in the bull and make him mad. Next came the picadores, who rode skinny horses, and they had long spears to stick in the bull and make him madder. I wonder why they're trying to make him mad. Maybe that's a part of the bullfight. Maybe they need the bull to be mad in order for him to fight in the ring. If the other bulls knew that this is what happened, I wonder if they would still want to be picked. Then came the matador, the proudest of all. He thought he was very handsome and bowed to the ladies. He had a red cape and a sword and was supposed to stick the bull last of all. Then came the bull. And you know who that was, don't you? Ferdinand. They called him Ferdinand the Fierce, and all the banderilleros were afraid of him, and the picadores were afraid of him, and the matador was scared stiff. Ferdinand ran to the middle of the ring, and everyone shouted and clapped because they thought he was going to fight fiercely and butt and snort and stick his horns around. Let's take a moment to stop and think. Based on what we know about Ferdinand and what he likes to do you think he's going to do what they expect him to do? What do you think he might do? Why don't we see if your predictions come true? But not Ferdinand. When he got to the middle of the ring, he saw the flowers in all the lovely ladies' hair, and he just sat down quietly and smelled. He wouldn't fight and be fierce no matter what they did. He just sat and smelled. And the banderilleros were mad, and the picadores were madder, and the matador was so mad he cried because he couldn't show off with his cape and sword. So they had to take Ferdinand home. So because Ferdinand didn't fight like they were expecting him to, they ended up just taking him home. And he wasn't killed by the matador. What do you think might have happened if Ferdinand did choose to fight? And for all I know, he is sitting there still, under his favorite cork tree, smelling the flowers just quietly. He is very happy. Wow, I really like this book. So remember, we were thinking about what the main idea of this story is. Well, if I think about it, the main character is Ferdinand. Ferdinand was very different from the other bulls. Instead of fighting and jumping around and showing off how tough he was, he just liked to smell flowers. I wonder if all the other bulls thought he was weird because of how different he was. Even his mom was a little concerned about Ferdinand because he didn't want to do what all the other bulls were doing. But when I think about it, Ferdinand's differences is what saved him from getting killed in the bullfight. Because he wouldn't fight and he just smelled the flowers and sat there quietly in the ring, they had to take him home. So if I put all of that together, I think that the author of this story is telling us that maybe we should celebrate our differences. It's okay to be different. Our differences are what makes us who we are. Sometimes our differences might even save us. So, talking about differences, our activity for today is a celebration of what makes each of us unique and different. So I have 2 things for you guys to do this week. On one page is a picture of a bull, and this bull is Ferdinand. Now, I want you to color this bull any way you want. It can look however you want. Make it as unique as you. On the second page, it says, I am a Ferdinand because, and I want you to tell me why you're Ferdinand. Why are you different? What makes you unique? What things do you like to do that other people don't? For example, I would say, I'm a Ferdinand because I like to sing and dance in public and I don't care who's watching. That makes me me. That makes me a Ferdinand, and I'm proud of that. So what makes you a Ferdinand? Now I will put a link to these pages below, and if you can print them out, perfect. If you aren't able to print them out though, you can take a piece of paper and trace out the picture of the bull. And if you submit them once again to this email, I will display it in our next week's video. I hope you guys enjoyed reading the story of Ferdinand with me. I had such a great time with you guys. Remember to keep reading, keep dreaming, and keep washing your hands.